She Feels, episode 8. I have the lovely Athina Bailey here, leading channeler and founder of Isis Ka. How are you? Of
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful and excited to be here and to be here with you. Thank you for having me, Raphael.
course, thank you. Let's just jump into it. So tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you do and how you got here.
Yeah, amazing. So I am, well, first and foremost, I call myself a channeler. I've been channeling for a very long time. I grew up psychic. I went through my spiritual awakening at a very young age as a teenager, and it put me onto the spiritual path and made that the path that I wanted to pursue. Then during my channeling work, I was channeling for people all over the world, and that built and built and built until people asked me how they can learn to channel, which is I created Channeling Spirit Academy. And then I also channel through a program called Isis Ka, which is basically the Isis priestesshood. So I'm also an Isis priestess, and a lot of the work that I do is channeling with her and working with her. But every single thing I do, and I call it spirit led, because I don't see channeling as just a tool, just something that we can use to get means to an end. I see it as a way of life. So I see my life as a co-creation with the divine, with spirit, and that I'm being guided, I'm being led every moment. And channeling for me allows me to truly surrender to that, be guided, and have clarity and a level of safety and certainty as well. And so for me, it has always been a priority to create a spirit-led life, a spirit-led business, and to create a life that reflects what I actually believe an embodied channel, how an embodied channel can live.
Thank you for that. Tell me a little bit about, like you said, you grew up and from a young age you already started channeling. Tell me about that. How was that?
It was pretty scary, if I'm honest, when it first started. I had a lot of like little psychic experiences as a child growing up. I always had this overwhelming fascination and interest in all things spiritual, always. And then at about 16, I went through my big spiritual awakening. I started to see beings, I started to sense beings. I went through a period of a few months where I really couldn't sleep because I was getting visitations every night. And I was aware because I was reading all the spiritual books and digesting everything that I could get my hands on. And there was an awareness in me that this was a spiritual awakening. However, there was still also a part of me because I wasn't really surrounded by spiritual people, right? Thank God for the internet because I was able to connect with people online. But there was still a part of me that's like, oh my God, am I going crazy? Am I losing my mind? Do I need to go to a mental asylum? Because it was quite an intense time. And that time period of my life, I look back at it as the training period. And usually people, whenever they go through a spiritual awakening, it is a training period. And for me, my guides were like, all right, Athena, you need to learn how to work with the spiritual realms and fast. And because I went through that period at 16, I'm pretty sure it was 16 or 17,
Oh yeah.
I began doing energetic processes like the pillar of light, astral projecting, researching energy healing, meditating every day because I was so focused on getting out of this like overwhelm of like, I can't control my gifts and it's overwhelming. And because of that, I went into everything very, very young, and I'm extremely grateful for that. And it meant that when I did finish school and left home, I went pretty quickly into studying energy healing and then offering that as a service. And whilst I had some channeling abilities that were coming in and supporting me, and I was talking with my guides during when I actually started providing services to others, healings mainly, my channel just went off, and like people's guides wouldn't stop talking to me when I was working with someone. And eventually people began to seek me out more for channelings than for healings. But my soul did choose to have my spiritual awakening at a very young age. But yeah, it was quite intense and a little bit scary and a little bit traumatic and a little bit isolating. But to be honest, I think that's just the nature of a spiritual journey, whether you're 16 or 60.
I mean, I'm a little jealous to be honest. I know. Hear that a lot. I wish I would have started mine back in the day because I would. But we all pick the timing and we all pick everything that we decide. Um, how did you like focus on that energy at such a young age? Because I know a couple people that are starting their spiritual journey too. And is this something you teach that to your classes and your groups?
Yes, definitely. I definitely do teach it, and I have a lot of free resources for all of this. For me, when I first started, and focusing and putting time and energy, it was almost like out of survival because I was so overwhelmed and so stressed out by everything, and it was consuming everything that I was like, I need to learn how to work with these energies. I need to learn how to deal with my gifts because at the moment it's so overwhelming for me. I'm having a really hard time doing life. Like it's just too much. So it was really out of necessity. And even at that young age, it set me up so well having access to all the spiritual teachings and books. Like I would go to the library and get all the books that I could. And I remember even at 16, I remember one of my then boyfriends broke up with me, and it was very hard for me. I was very into him and I had a hard time with the breakup. And I remember going at the time, okay, well, how am I going to cope with this? How am I going to get over this? And I was like, right, I'm going to meditate. And so I would literally just meditate for hours every single day because I was like, okay, well, all the books say like that's how you like deal with stuff. That's going to make life better. So I feel very grateful that these resources was giving to me, but I also went through a lot of trauma when I was a teenager, and it it equipped me with a set of skills that were very much out of necessity. I felt at that point it wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to choose to do these spiritual things. It was like, yeah, I had to.
And then that transformed into this whole other journey that you've been on now for so long. I know I saw your Instagram the other day and you're in front of so many people and doing all these bigger things. Uh, Tell a little bit about like how to feel to teach and to have all these people and kind of going there.
Yeah, it's the most beautiful feeling in the world. Absolute gratitude, joy when I am able to share my work, support others. It's honestly, it's the greatest feeling in the world. And I remember there have been moments in my career that really anchored that into me from the first time someone came up to me and said, you know, your work has really, really helped me and it's changed my life. It's just sticks with you. You're like, why? It creates this
Yeah.
feeling of like, okay, my life is worthwhile. I'm having an impact on the world. I'm making this place a better place for other humans. And it creates a level of fulfillment. And for me, being able to experience that and experience that every single day, you know, it doesn't just matter that I love what I do, seeing that it has a positive impact. It's just an incredible experience. And I'm so, so grateful for that. It has been a like a big journey, and I'm very fortunate now to have opportunities to be in front of bigger audiences, which still definitely experiencing the nervousness of that before going on stage, usually always. But yeah, it's always all just gratitude and joy. Even when we were just in London and I was speaking on stage there in front of hundreds of people, like coming off of the stage, I was just moved to tears. I was so grateful to be there, to be sharing my work, to be doing my work. And I take people through processes and hard activations. And when I'm looking at people in the crowd and they're in the process and they're crying and they're so connected to their spiritual team, it's just like, it just
I mean,
it's a sense of completion and wholeness, and yeah.
I mean, you're spot on. Before we jumped on, I was just thinking out loud of like just the things that we're doing. I was being grateful for like this, even this podcast and things like that. And then I've been talking to a lot of different people and just helping them find their light or find their purpose. And I was like, that's what we're here about, right? Literally, that's the same intuition I had. I was like, see, I even get chills when we talk about it. We're just here to help people wake up, help people grow into their best version of themselves, help people just like become like this adventurous spirit and awaken so we can stop this misery in the collective, right?
100%. And the way I see it, it's we're very intentionally here at this time to be the bridges between the 3D and the 5D. And each of us has very intentionally incarnated here with a set of gifts and a unique purpose that fits in with all the other light workers on Earth to help us create the shift. And that's why it's so important to me, because I'm like, if you, whoever's listening to this, don't wake up, don't share your purpose, I can only go so far. I can only do so much. I need you as much as you need me. We need each other. And we're creating this huge evolutionary consciousness shift on Earth that Earth has asked for. And that's why you've incarnated. And it was, previously, like hundreds of years ago, people, and for thousands of years as well, people were incarnating on Earth a lot for lessons. But now they're incarnating a lot, the light workers, to serve, to provide services. And many of us are here to do just that. Yes, we'll have our lessons as well, but we're here with an overarching theme to support and help Gaia create this shift, because she's ready. And we're the ones here who are doing the footwork to make it happen. And when I think about that, I'm also like, so of course we're so supported by our spiritual team, our guides, the councils of light to support us to do that, because we've come here for this reason. And we're never really alone. We're always supported. We're always guided to do this work to serve the way that we came here to.
Yeah, that was beautiful. I tend to forget that sometimes, as my Scorpio self can be
Mm.
hard on ourselves, and you forget that you're guided. One thing is, it's really nice, the unique gifts like you talk about, because I can see a bigger picture this people can't see at times. So like even this young girl who came to me the other day, she's very artistic in this, and I just saw a future of her being like this intuitive arts dealer, painter, showing all her emotions into her painting. And then she's like, "Well, how do I start this one thing?" And I'm just like, I'm able to see that in people, and I think that's what part of it, and it's part of helping them broaden their awareness, right? Because awareness is probably 50, 60, 70% of everything.
Absolutely. And I think we are all so uniquely gifted and geared to be here on Earth. Every single one of us was chosen. And I really say that as chosen, because to get on Earth is not easy. And I really genuinely believe that every single person on Earth is so intentionally chosen to be here. And when people, because usually what we see at the start of people's spiritual journeys, or when they haven't fully tapped into their gifts yet, they say, yeah, but what am I doing here? Like, I don't see how I'm going to have an impact. I don't see how I'm going to do anything. But there was a force far greater than us that looked upon you and said, yeah, Earth needs you. So I understand that maybe everything hasn't come online yet, but you were chosen to be here. And there is something within you that humanity needs. And that might be your loving heart, your presence. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I've got to create like this big spiritual course, but there is something within you that was needed by Earth at this time. And all of these gifts, like what you described, there's such an important part of it. And yeah, I agree. The awareness is a very important part of it. And I think that a big part of the spiritual journey is coming into this awareness and coming into truth. It's like the life that we live before our spiritual awakening, there's a lot of lack of clarity and uncertainty. And after our spiritual journey, we come out of the other side and we say, oh, I know the truth of who I am. I know who I am. I know why I'm here. I know what I'm here to share with the world. And that awareness, it's very, very powerful, because it creates a certainty that allows us to then begin to live our life from that space.
Now that is beautiful. You said something about Earth not being easy to come. Can you elaborate on that one?
Mhm. Yes. So, from what I've understood from various channelings, is that Earth is a very, what's the right word? Like, highly sought after, juicy place to be right now. A lot of beings, a lot of souls across the entire universe are like, oh, Earth, like that's a place to be right now. Like, let's go. We can help. I'm getting goosebumps as I say that. Like, we want to go there. We want to help. We'll offer our services, because there's so much to gain for a soul from being on Earth and incarnating at this time and offering assistance. And the evolution of Earth right now from this 3D to 5D, it also dramatically affects the entire universe, right? It's going to create a ripple effect. And so there's a lot of eyes on Earth at the moment, and it's a place where a lot of souls, they want to be part of this experience, they want to contribute. It's great for their soul to go through the lessons of that as well. So very, very mindfully, the councils of light had to decide, okay, we have a lot of souls who want to come and help. Gaia called for help. We've got a lot of help, which is amazing, but we need to figure out who actually is the best fit so that like every soul that comes here contributes to that shift in the best and highest way possible, which is why everybody who's listening today, because I have no doubt that you're a light worker because you're here and you're listening to it. So then I also know with every cell of my being that you came here for a purpose. You came here to serve. You have gifts, and your gifts are needed by the world.
You just try to put it in perspective, right? Like you just try to comprehend on like the what you just said and to the scale of it. Like people Earth is sought out after, and you're here, and then a lot of people are even awakening yet to their true potential self, and just like all these things, couch potatoes, this, whatever it might be, and we're so powerful, right? We're so powerful.
Yeah, 100%. The power we hold is we have the creative spark within us. Not only that, but we, like when we actually fully activate our energy and we learn to work with it, and we understand that it's not just us here, that we have these forces of light behind us assisting us. We truly are so, so powerful. But part of the system that we're brought into, it does everything it can to disempower us again and again. Let me disempower you financially, spiritually, mentally. Let me get you codependent, which is why I'm also so passionate about light workers and spiritual people having abundance, because one of the other big lies that is fed is that, oh, spiritual people shouldn't be abundant, they should be in poverty. But of course, someone would say that because in our world, money, abundance is resources, right? Resources is power and the ability to do certain things. If you don't have the resources to do certain things, it's a loss of power, right? That's just the reality of our world. Sure, it'd be great if it wasn't, but that's the reality of our world right now. So by having more abundance, we have the ability to have more resources and to create a bigger impact. Because I have abundance, I am able to invest in my YouTube channel, my team, my business, creating free courses, putting stuff out into the world, traveling to speak on different stages around the world. All of that comes because there is a level of power associated with money, because I chose to opt out of the system, which really wants spiritual people to believe that they shouldn't have money, that they should struggle, and that it's more moral. But it's just another lie to take away our power, because we are so, so powerful, and they want us to forget that.
I'm glad you brought this up because I think part of my journey here to help as much masculines and all this drop into their heart space is it's that theory that I'm going through right now that it's like every time I attach away from it, it like tries to pull me back into the abundance theory because I'm literally my world is collapsing at the 3D world because we're taught to be providers. Men need to be men need to do this. Men like there's a lot of pressure that goes on there, and obviously there's a lot more. But like so that I want to talk more about that. So how do you kind of separate yourself from that? How do you continue and how do I continue to teach these men that come along to rip that away?
Oof, I love this. It's such a good conversation, such an important conversation. So, I am actually, my husband and I, we are very big on polarity, right? So, my husband does men's work, he works with masculine energy, and I do a lot of women's work. And in our personal life, in our relationship, we are very focused on polarity, creating the masculine and the feminine poles. And we really focus on communication, how we approach things from being in those energies, because we found that is what works best for us. We know it's not for everyone, but for us, that has worked very, very well. However, what I have noticed, because, when I was first getting into polarity, I studied with a lot of amazing teachers, learned all the things that I could get my hands on. And what I noticed is there was still almost this underlying, and for me, it was like 3D, like when I say 3D, it's like old paradigm, right? I don't see it as aligned to the new earth. And I saw this like 3D belief system that it's like, oh, the man has to be the provider, right? And even in these polarity groups, we would have these women who were very successful and they would have a lot of money and they would come in, that they build businesses. It's like, oh, you still need to find a man that's a provider. But what I've understood through my channelings and what I've seen working as well with other incredible spiritual women is that a lot of these women like myself, we're priestesses, right? And priestesses are vessels for receiving. That's a very intentional part of how we work. And so we receive, I channel, I receive from spirit, I receive abundance, right? And that's actually also the feminine. The feminine is the receiving energy. And these priestesses who are receiving abundance, who have created these successful spiritual businesses, who are also very feminine, I have seen in a lot of these situations that they are the primary breadwinners. They are the ones who are creating the abundance, but it's not from a masculine place. And a lot of these polarity teachings or polarity schools can't separate that because they're like, oh, providership is financial, when it's actually no. I make my abundance by meditating, channeling, and doing my priestess work. I'm not out there hustling. I'm not providing. I'm being the highest version of myself. And in my magnetic, aligned, activated feminine, of course, money comes in to support me. And I also work with money as a masculine energy. So I'm the feminine, money's coming in to support me. And I'm calling that in as a priestess. And in a marriage, a sacred union, it really doesn't matter if it's coming through the masculine providership or the feminine priestess or both, because I don't see money as having or the ability to create money, bring money as being a masculine or feminine thing, and the man should only do it. So it's a belief system that I still see a lot in the personal development, but one that I don't really subscribe to, because what I see is that when a woman who is very spiritual begins to create success, she is held back by that belief system and starting to think like, oh, maybe I can't make too much, or, and it just starts to create stories in her head. So it's one that I'm like, I do want people to begin to release and step away from.
Yeah, I mean, that was beautifully said. I'm not in a union, so, but at the same time, I'm still trying to reverse that polarity of 25 years in corporate world that has taught me that my value is what's in my bank account and all this, and that is
Yes.
no joke,
Yeah.
the amount of work that that takes.
Oh, yes.
I still struggle with this, and I know my job here is to teach other men to do this as well and to help them detach themselves and get into their feelings. And because you could tap into, like, I could tap into my feminine and try and be the magnetic self. Obviously, my divine union, when that comes, that's going to be even more powerful. But that's with all due time, because I know, yeah, it's just a very interesting subject, because that's the, like, I believe the soar. I even did a workshop on what it is to be a provider, which is about safe
Mhm.
spaces. There's a lot of safe space conversation, all this to really cater to all emotions and not run away from the emotions. And it's not nothing about money. It never was.
I totally agree. And when I see the masculine, and I look at my husband, for example, money is one of the last things I'm thinking about what he's providing for me. He's providing safety. He's providing a masculine container. He's providing so many things for me that it's like, money, oh, that's just that thing over there. Like there's so much more that the masculine provides. And yeah, I for men, I definitely don't want men to be walking around going, my value is in what I can provide, what I can bring, because it's just like that is a very small part of it, if at all. And I think what you said about the corporate world and the worth tied to it, it's so true, because when I am working with light workers who are stepping into their soul purpose and doing their work, it's like an unraveling. The corporate world, the belief systems, the habits, when you've been there for a while, it gets into your brain, and it's not, well, it is hard, and it can be very time consuming to begin to unravel the beliefs around like time freedom and value and how we receive money. It's very full, it's very full on. It's definitely not, it's not easy.
No,
Yeah.
no, and I don't think I know that's my purpose here. I did that for the reason. I'm doing it now for the reason because not a lot of people want to do this. And that's why I feel like it's my job to help all these men wake up to their true divine so we can support each other and more unions can come. And then we can take over this whole world in the 5D.
Yes, I love that. And I think that's so important because there are many, many women who are waking up, and the reality is we need the men. We need the masculine. We can't do it on our own. We need the masculine rising, and the masculine has a lot of power. And I feel like even now, because women have been coming together and rising and reactivating, like, so for example, in my priestesshood, it's like the teachings of the sacred feminine. I don't really see much of that exist for the masculine. And with my husband, I've channeled a lot about him with past lives and the Order of Melchizedek and the priesthoods that he's been in previous lifetimes in Egypt as well. And what I could see from those previous lifetimes, it was very similar to what women are doing today in the world, like coming together, having these sacred trainings, teachings to be with the sacred feminine. But I don't see that in the world yet for men, like showing men how to use that power within them, and it's so so needed, and I see it as like this space. So I think it's so important when, like, you're going, I feel called to do this, I need this, I need to do this. Absolutely, like, men really really need this, women really need this, families really really need this. It's so important.
It's funny you mentioned that because the name of the program that I created was called the Sacred Masculine.
Oof, that's a good name, strong name.
Yeah, yeah, I figured that would be a good name because like we talked about, it's needed. So talk to us about your channeling. I am very curious to dig deep a little down there. Tell me how it is. What like are they do
Yeah.
you talk right now to them? Are they what is tell me about it all.
So when I channel a lot. I channel every day throughout the day. When I'm alone at home, like, or just, at home, I will usually be in a lot of communication with my guides. They will usually be around. When I'm around other people or I'm going out, I usually kind of go, okay, I'm going to disconnect for a while because it can be overwhelming to see everybody's spiritual teams and talk with them and work with them. But on a general, I talk to my own guides every day throughout the day, especially if I've got clients or I'm working, because again, everything I do for my business is co-created with my guides. So if I'm writing a sales page or doing some marketing or working on a new program, my guides are there guiding me, assisting me, helping me throughout that. So it's pretty constant, and I channel every morning when I wake up, usually before bed as well. I'm talking to them. Then probably about once a week, my husband and I sit down and do a trance channeling session. So there are different kinds of channeling. So for example, the way that I'm talking to you right now is how I talk to my guides, and that's called indirect channeling. Then, however, there is another type of channeling where I would go into a deep trance state. Eyes would be shut. I would feel like it's almost like you're half asleep. And when I come out of it, I don't know how much time has passed. I don't really remember what was said. I feel a bit dazed, and it's like a very deep, deep hypnosis state. And in that trance state, we connect to beings and they talk through us. So rather than me talking to them, they talk through us in the first person. It's a very different style of channeling. It's very intense. The human body can only handle so much, and you need to be quite advanced in your energetic hygiene, energetic boundaries, protections to know what you're doing with that. But the benefit is what comes through in those sessions is so powerful because it's not filtered by the ego. It's so raw. And a lot of the time when I've channeled, because I channel a lot of programs, I channel a lot of offerings, it's come through in those sessions. A lot of huge life advice that I've shared for my husband and myself has been through those sessions. So we do very much intentionally try and sit down at least once a week. At the moment, it's been more just because we're working on different things in the business and creating new programs. So we've been doing it a lot more and been channeling his modality as well. So we spend a lot of time bringing that through and channeling. So we do that once a week. And then, in my programs, I'll often do trance channelings or live channeling. So really, like, I feel like I channel all the time, every day. And when I don't channel for, like, let's say a few days, which doesn't really, it did happen actually when I was traveling now, because flew from Europe to Australia and it's a long flight. It's like a couple of days and I just wasn't channeling. I was jet lagged. I wasn't really connected in. And I got back and I was like, I don't feel like myself. Like I need to go sit with my spirit guides, talk with my spirit guides, because it's like it raises my vibration and it connects me to the divine, which is so, so, so important for me. So that's a little bit about, yeah,
Yeah.
how my life looks when
So
it comes to channeling.
I mean, I'm curious. I want to be a fly on the wall on that one. The so are you able to see like right now? Are you able to see like my people, like my people? Do you is that easy for you? Did my grandmother say hi to you already? I'm kind of curious.
So, I am fully clairvoyant. So I have it, like I said, I generally have it off. But right now, if I said, okay, cool, calling forward Raphael, spiritual team, spiritual guides, angels, ancestors, higher self, who are serving the light only, they would all come in and yeah, I can see them all with you now. And it's like I see it as this beautiful big spiritual team standing behind you of beautiful light beings with you.
And you just see the light itself, not the actual representation of
No,
the different people.
I see the being. Yeah. So, lots of different multidimensional beings. Our spiritual teams are very big. So, for example, looking at yours, I can see galactic beings, I can see angels, I can see ancestral beings, and people have big teams. You know, when we think about we have a higher self, we have guides, we have angels, ancestors, galactic beings, or like soul family, all of that. The teams end up being quite big. Like really a light worker on earth, they're going to have at least like 50 beings working with them. Doesn't mean that with them all the time, but they're the beings who have a connection with them. But yes, like right now, as I connect into your energy, I see about 12 that are with you right now, working with you, connected to you.
Interesting. I've always thought it was like three or four, to be honest. I always thought it was like my grandmother, grandfather, a couple other people, and an archangel.
No, you've got a big team, and you know our guides exist on different realms, and so our ancestors exist in one-dimensional space, like in one dimension or one realm. But then we also have galactic guides are in another dimension, angels are in a whole other dimension. So it spans across dimensions. We are often closest to the ancestral realm, so it's easiest for us to feel and sense, and we're also familiar with the energy of them because we've encountered them in our life, in our reality. So we often have that strong connection with our ancestors. But your team is quite big. I can definitely see more than one angel in there. There's definitely a few in there.
Man, you're a beautiful soul for even all that.
Thank you.
It's like we talked about in the beginning of this podcast, right? Like just the scope of how the awareness level of everything, like people fight to come to Earth. Your team is bigger than just one of these things. Like I feel like if people are just aware of this,
I know.
it's
Yeah.
and we have to just keep spreading this message as hard as it might sometimes might seem, right?
That's what that's what I keep coming back to. And I always say to everyone, like, there's two truths, right? The first truth is you were chosen to be here because you have a soul mission. You have a soul mission, a purpose to share with the world something that you came here to do. And light workers know this to be true because when I say that, they feel something inside of them stir. That's the first truth. The second truth is that you are unconditionally loved by the divine, by your spiritual team. You have a spiritual team that loves you. I've channeled for thousands and thousands of people. It doesn't matter who it is, what they're going through, where they are, there is always spiritual beings supporting them, loving them, working with them. And every single time, over and over again, every single time I connect to anyone's spiritual team, it's the same thing. Overwhelming love. Like even looking at your team, the first thing I feel is the love that they have for you. And so seeing that multiple times a day, every day for many years, I know that that is the truth. We are so deeply loved. We are not alone. And in our realm, in our 3D bodies, if we don't have our clairs activated, can feel like we're alone, but we're not. We're so,
Yeah.
so, so deeply supported.
I think that's a bigger message than all of it, right? Because I know somebody like me, the Scorpio self, that's always in a war in their mind, and I know you know a little bit about that. And then we kind of forget, like you are able to see and hear and do all these things, beautiful things, but the people that are still in this journey, I'm like, okay, grandma, do you love me? Like sometimes I forget because you're so embedded in this warrior phase,
Yeah.
you forget what love is and kindness is because you're so fighting all the time.
Yeah.
It's
And I also feel like that could be an invitation for, when you do move into your sacred union, the feminine should support you with that. Because what you're saying right now, that's stuff I heard from my husband as well. And I think that's also part of the masculine, whether it's the masculine programs or the warrior of the masculine. I think it's beautifully balanced then with the feminine to come into that softness and emotional safety within sacred union. But you're right, there are so many people that are unaware of it, which is why I'm also so passionate about channeling, because I'm like, I literally have a life coach, a business coach,
yeah,
guides, like therapists, on like
yeah,
on demand. And it's just because I've activated this ability, which everybody has. Everybody can channel. I'm not unique. I've just worked for it, harnessed it, mastered it, and I've taught hundreds and hundreds, it's getting close to 1,000, hundreds and hundreds of people how to channel, how to activate their channeling abilities and channel. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I actually believe in the fifth dimension where we're all moving towards, we co-create with the divine. We're not co-creating with our ego or even our mind and trying to figure out like, where should I be going? It is soul-led, spirit-guided, and that requires communication with the higher realms.
yeah. Even this conversation on 1010 that we're having for you, it's 1011, but just the whole conversation we're having. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So what about if you have a message or something that you think your spirit team or yourself want to leave that resonates with the audience here? What lasting message? What would that be?
Right now, as you are so worthy of love. You don't need to become anyone else. You don't need to do anything else. You don't need to earn it. You are as you are, worthy of love, of receiving unconditional love in all ways right now. Somebody needed to hear that.
I love that. I love that. And how would people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram. It's at Athena Bailey, or you can find me on my website, athinabailey.com. And you can find me on YouTube as well, podcast, Spotify. I'm on a lot of different things, but I have lots of free courses that, are in all of this stuff and lots of resources as well.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, people listening to her podcast. It's good. And go check her out. I appreciate you coming on today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Raphael, and for letting me share my message with your audience. Thank you.
Thank you.